It is Phumlani Majozi, the author of Lessons from Past Heroes. This is the Phumlani Majozi show where we give you common sense on local and global affairs. Remember, I'm on X at Phumlani Majozi. I'm on Facebook, Phumlani Majozi. I'm on LinkedIn, Phumlani Majozi. I'm on Instagram at Phumlani Majozi. I am on TikTok at Phumlani Majozi. It's a big week in the US. Mr. Trump is back as US president. The president of the United States of America. It's going to be a very interesting 4 years, folks. Now, there are some people who have raised concern that both in America and in some parts of the world, that Mr. Trump's policies are going to push up inflation within the United States. Mr. Trump has pushed back against that. He says, well, he does have his first term to refer to. He was in office from early 2017 until 2020, and he argues that there was no inflation during that time when he was in office. He is not lying. The inflation problem was brought by Joe Biden. Inflation skyrocketed under Joe Biden. It went from 1.4% when Joe Biden took office and peaked in June 2022 to 9%. That's a very disturbing rise, folks. I was in America last June. I could feel the pain of the high cost of living. I'm from South Africa with my ZAR, with my rent, and it was really painful. The people in the US, the locals, were complaining about the high cost of living. The people I spoke to, the Uber drivers, the bus drivers, people at the train station, they were complaining about the very high cost of living. So that is what knocked, the Democrats out of the White House, along, of course, with the delusions when it comes to cultural matters. So those things really, they really knocked Democrats out of power in the US, and we can only hope that they learn something. So Mr. Trump is saying, look, my policies, I'm not going to be damaging. I'm going to create a society that is, stronger when it comes to the economy. I'm going to raise the standards of living for my American people. He says he's going to push ahead with deregulation, tax cuts, cutting the size of government in the US, dealing with the issues of the border, beginning this week. That's what he has said. And all those things, I think they will be positive for the US economy. And if the US is stronger from an economic perspective, it's good for us as South Africans as well, because the US is amongst our top trade partners. So we look forward to Trump's presidency. Now, some people say that, some other people as well argue that when it comes to the global perspective, Trump will be a negative. I totally disagree with that opinion. When you look at the Israel-Hamas ceasefire deal, Trump was a factor there. If you don't want to accept that he was a factor, then really you are living in your own world, folks. He was a factor on this, Israel-Hamas ceasefire deal. If Trump had not been elected last November, things would be different. His election and his words that if something does not get done by a certain date, there will be hell. Those words from the world's most powerful statesman are important. Even The Economist, in its latest coverage of Trump's foreign policy, their cover story, they do acknowledge that Trump was a factor when it comes to this Israel-Hamas ceasefire deal. And The Economist do also acknowledge that Trump is right when it comes to pressuring the NATO nations to spend more on their defense. And I also do agree with that. I do agree with it. They have to spend more on their defense. They must be capable of defending themselves. The American taxpayers should not be picking up the costs of European defense capabilities. That should not be the case. The Europeans must pay more. So I'm glad to see The Economist acknowledging that Trump is right there. I totally agree as well. Trump is very, very right. By the way, when it comes to tariffs, Joe Biden was also a supporter of tariffs, so there's nothing unique about that. The tariffs agenda, the tariffs on Chinese goods. There's nothing unique about Trump, in contrast to Joe Biden. And look, I don't think this will be a serious matter that causes a seismic shift in the global economy. The tariffs on Chinese goods. I totally agree with Dr. Fareed Zakaria of CNN when he says that it's going to be something that Trump mainly uses as a bargaining sort of method. It's all just threats and bluffs. That's what it is. He wants to use the tariffs thing as a sort of a bargaining tool when it comes to negotiations. So in large part, I think that Trump's presidency will be positive for the world. Let's hope that in Ukraine something works out and that the war there comes to an end. Let's hope that in Africa we have a serious crisis in Sudan, a very damaging war that has killed thousands of people, displaced thousands of people as well. Let's hope that something works out in our continent here, that such a conflict comes to an end. So let's look forward to the Trump presidency. Let's do not fear it. There's no need to fear it. I hope that Trump's reform, the economic reforms, they become a template for nations in the developing world, especially in Africa. We rank at the bottom when it comes to economic freedom, right? We are the poorest continent in the world. Why? Because we have bad governance, bad policies. The Economist 2 weeks ago released a cover story where it argued that on Africa, it was a special. They argued that Africa needs a stronger capitalism. It needs a capitalist revolution. I totally agree with that. I have been preaching it for years. There has to be stronger capitalism in Africa to attract investment. But that will only happen if we as Africans create a safe environment with good governance, invest in ourselves, ensure law and order, get education reform right, equip our people with good, decent education. It can be done with good governance. If we can get those rights, we'll therefore, be able to attract investment both locally and globally as well. So I hope Trump's reform agenda inspires other leaders in the developing world to embrace the pro-market system. This is the Phumlani Majozi Show. We'll chat soon.